Strap in, crypto traders. Time to get insights that make every second count. Welcome back, guys. Hopefully you guys had a phenomenal weekend and a great start to your week. That Sunday pump caused a lot of confusion for most, and we're probably wondering where the heck are we going to be going. So I want to start off with high time frame viewpoints for us. I put an idea out for you guys just last week on some ideas as far as where I'm looking at for 2026. I'm going to dive into that. I'm also going to be diving into intraday trades and some scalps that we're also looking at. If you're not part of the Discord family, I'll be sharing a little bit of that with you guys here momentarily. But let's first dive into the weekly. Let's take a peek at what we're looking at here. Right off the bat, not putting any setups on here, we can see where these EMAs are at, sitting right in this area. They really haven't been tested yet, and this starts right around the 3300s. Notorious for the most support, if you will, on a weekly is going to be somewhere around the 2500s. Now let's go ahead and strap on that high time frame idea that we were peaking at. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out for us, and real simple, right? I am still looking at higher levels for us, but as you can see, these boxes right here, these purple boxes, these are essentially our bear markets, which our bear markets were basically ABC corrections after our large impulse into either a wave one, or we had a different wave where we had a wave three for a minor wave inside. So essentially I'm looking at something that's very similar to that. Now, if we zoom in on that and we come into that, right, we're looking at testing this area at the bare minimum, right? I'm looking at this drop down from here. This is essentially going to be a wave A, testing either this EMA right over here or testing the 100 EMA inside this area. I still believe that we would go a little bit lower for a C correction at some point, and that I have this measured out sometime between June all the way through December. I'm betting on more of December, seeing when we get down to these levels, we have a little bit of chop, maybe some little pumps, and then we move sideways and then we bounce off. Now let's go ahead and zoom out again. We can see where this trend line is essentially established. So I believe that we would be testing this trend line at least one more time before we start seeing giga pumps into 2027. Now I'm positioning in as far as measuring this out for a wave 5. This is all mathematics really. At the end of the day, I'm just using fib levels. This isn't drawing imaginary lines that are on here or just painting this based on my bias. Overall, I'm still going to be bullish on this, but I do believe that there's going to be some type of correction. That just makes more sense to collect the liquidity to the downside before we move up. At the end of the day, that's how price action moves. It moves by collecting liquidity. So that being said, I believe that this wave A is going to come down into these levels, maybe even a little bit lower inside here. Then we'll see another pop up either to 4130s or 4466. Now, this leg right here, it can have a little move up to the upside, and I'll share that with you guys here in a second. It's really just contingent on what happens in the first week to 2 weeks of November. So I'm betting on something maybe coming over here inside these areas. That's where I think there would be a bigger short for us. Actually, let's dive into that right now. So let's go into this setup that I shared with you guys. This is the bat formation that I'm looking at. I'm looking at a slightly lower time frame, 89-minute, and everything's measured out perfectly for a bat formation. It's just really where the D leg is going to be ending up. It could either end up somewhere around 0.76 or 0.88. I believe 0.88 makes a little bit more sense. One, because we have a nice order block that sits inside this zone, and we're right on the bottom of a fair value gap. If we look left, that really hasn't been tapped into yet. So I think we could take a little bit of liquidity here from this area and then move down. Now, what invalidates that is if price action shoots up above this fair value gap, clearing that imbalance, and then it inverses it, meaning that we start turning this into support, then we'll start moving higher. This is going to change the narrative for a lot of things, and we'll obviously be moving higher into the 4700s and possibly even retesting all-time highs again. But for the time being, right, just flipping back to this, looking at a weekly, when we throw on a sequential count with that, it's one thing I've been mentioning to you guys, is this count right over here is showing a bullish lead up phase or setup phase, if you want. It's the opposite of what you're thinking, right? So bullish setup phase, meaning we're going to have more drops where you can actually get in at a position. And from this count, there's at least 8 more of those counts that need to occur before we actually have this correction finalizing. Going back over to the 89-minute, what we were looking at inside of our corner was a setup for us. And I'll go ahead and throw that on for us real quick. This is what we're looking at in the meantime, right? Because if we're going to be going to the 4600s, wouldn't it make more sense to be looking for longs? Absolutely. So that being said, we're looking at lower time frames. I'm going to be looking at this setup right here, which is an anti-cipher. And just looking at the wave count from here, right? We had, I'll go left. We kind of chop, right? We had a drop right over here. Essentially this purple line right here, this would essentially be your wave 1. We have a wave 2. This is important to identify because this is your 0.5 level, and that's important for your wave 4. So that being said, this whole move up essentially was a wave 3. Now, is there potential that this thing just continues to shoot up higher and invalidates this area? Then wave 3 essentially wasn't done. Then I'd be targeting somewhere around this level right here for wave 3, which would be right around about 45.30. But for the time being, this is one of the setups that we're utilizing inside of our Discord. This little drop that we had late last night going into London, and then obviously New York pumping it right back up. I'm looking at this essentially being a wave A, a wave B, testing maybe these areas right over here, and then we're going to have a wave C, which would gradually fall into where wave 4 would be at. Now, wave 4 could either be at 0.32 or 618. Those are going to be the options for us, considering that wave 2 was a 0.5. I've mentioned this before in previous updates. We're not going to have a wave 2 and a wave 4 both at 0.5 fib levels. So it's something to be looking for. So that being said, I'm looking for this short to come into a long area. I will be testing this zone right over here for hedge longs. If this area fails, if this area just gets taken out, if you will, for lack of terminology, I'll be looking for this level right over here. I see that this is trendline liquidity. I could see a spike through that. If individuals are going to be long in this area, if we can see down from where leg A was at, we can see that it's kind of this line right over here. So I would be placing my bids just underneath that from a mathematical perspective, somewhere around the 618 zone. Now, what invalidates this, again, as I mentioned, if we continue to go higher, then we're going to go to the 4500s, and then I'd still be looking for that wave 4 and just be remeasuring from that level and then longing back up into a wave 5. But for the time being, this is essentially what we're looking at. I'd be looking at wave 5 coming right around about 4,300, 4,400 inside this area, just based on this setup right now, and then coming back down for an ABC correction, and then we'll have more moves down to the downside. I'm going to give you an overall synopsis. Actually, I'll do it from here. From the count, because I'm looking at this as an overall bearish count, and I'll zoom out for you guys, right? How high can this thing go? This is essentially where I'm getting at, right? 1, 2, and then if we continue down to the downside, this is what it looks like. So right now we print a 9 over here from a sequential count. My 9 was a little bit lower, but my 8 was higher than my 6 and my 7, so that's showing me trend exhaustion. If we zoom in a little bit more, this was printing a 13, so at the same time, it was showing us signs that the trend was showing signs of exhaustion, if that makes any sense. But we had to be just diligent here. So just going back to this setup real quick, and let's go ahead and remove that. This is what we're working with for the time being. Yes, I am still long. I'm holding on to my long. We've been longing from these zones right over here, 37.19. Some of us even got in at these levels right over here as well too. All these setups are inside of Discord. Hopefully you guys are taking advantage of that. Now, if you have any questions about the setups, please feel free to reach out to me, DM me. All feedback is welcomed. And outside of that, hopefully this information serves you well. God bless you, be profitable, and be safe. I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.